She walked into the store she built from the ground up, only to be treated like a shoplifter by her own employees. 7 minutes later, the staff and everyone watching would never forget her face again. Aaliyah Carter stepped into the flagship store of her fashion brand with a quiet, purposeful stride, the winter air still clinging to her long black coat and silky job. It had been weeks since she'd last visited, and she wanted to see how her team was running the place without announcing her arrival. The store glowed with warm lighting, elegant displays, and the faint scent of new leather from her latest handbag line. She moved slowly, running her fingers along the edges of a display she had personally designed years ago. Every shelf, every rack was a piece of her vision brought to life through years of relentless work. She kept her presence low-key. Makeup, no jewelry, just the look of an ordinary customer. But as she browsed, she caught the sharp, darting glances of 2 young employees nearby. Their eyes lingered longer than normal, scanning her from head to toe with thinly veiled suspicion. One whispered something into her colleague's ear, and the 2 began following her through the aisles, pretending to straighten merchandise whenever she stopped. Aaliyah's heart sank slightly. She recognized the look. They didn't see her as the owner, or even as a valued customer. They saw her as someone who didn't belong. She moved to another section, but their presence shadowed her every step. When she picked up one of her own signature handbags, the taller employee approached, tone-clipped and cold. "Can I help you? Or are you just looking?" The pause between her words carried an unspoken accusation. Aaliyah kept her expression calm, replying politely, "Just looking." But inside, a familiar sting returned. She had faced prejudice before on the streets, in boardrooms, but never inside the very walls she had built. Aaliyah wandered toward the jewelry section, still trailed by the 2 employees whose whispers had grown bolder. She could hear snippets. "Doesn't look like she can afford that," and keep an eye on her, as though she were invisible. Or worse, unworthy of respect. The 3rd staff member, a young man at the counter, glanced up, and instead of offering a friendly greeting, he immediately picked up the store phone and muttered something while keeping his gaze fixed on her. Within moments, the store manager emerged from the back, adjusting her blazer and wearing a forced, overly polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Ma'am," the manager began, her voice sugary but firm. "If you're not planning to make a purchase, we'll need to ask you to leave. We have very high-end products here, and our customers appreciate privacy." The implication hung in the air like a bad odor. Aaliyah blinked, momentarily stunned at the audacity. She had built this store from nothing, overseen every product, design, approved every single employee hire including this very manager, and yet here she stood, being ushered out as if she were a threat. She could have revealed herself right then, could have pulled out her CEO badge and humiliated them in front of the few customers browsing nearby. But she didn't. Instead, she simply nodded, placed the handbag she had been holding back on the display with deliberate care, and turned toward the door. Her silence seemed to embolden the staff, and she caught the faint smirk of the taller employee as she left. But as the cool air hit her face outside, Aaliyah's expression hardened. They thought they had the last word, but they had no idea who they were dealing with or how quickly the balance of power was about to shift. Aaliyah didn't walk far. Instead, she stopped at the corner cafe across from her store and ordered a coffee, using the time to gather her thoughts. She pulled out her phone, opened the private security app linked to the store, and began reviewing the live feed. Every camera angle told the same story: employees clustering together, glancing toward the door, laughing in hushed tones, completely unaware that their every word and gesture was being recorded in crisp high definition. She clipped a short segment of the video, showing the manager's dismissive remarks and the smug smirk of the taller employee, and saved it to her personal drive. Then she sent a single text to her assistant: "Clear my schedule for the next 2 hours," were having a staff meeting. Finishing her coffee, she rose and crossed the street with a steady, unhurried stride, her heels clicking against the pavement like a countdown to reckoning. As she stepped back into the store, the room seemed to shift, the hum of conversation stilled. The employees straightened, and even the manager's rehearsed confidence faltered. Without raising her voice, Aaliyah instructed a nearby clerk to lock the doors. "We're closed to customers for the next hour," she said. A ripple of confusion passed through the staff, but no one dared object. She walked toward the center of the sales floor, her presence radiating authority, and finally spoke the words that silenced every whisper. "For those who don't know, my name is Aaliyah Carter. I own this store, this brand, and every single thing you see in it." The stunned faces told her everything: shock, embarrassment, a dawning fear of consequences. But Aaliyah wasn't here just to call them out. She was here to change the way they thought forever. The silence in the room was thick enough to cut. Aaliyah let it hang for a moment before slowly pulling out her phone and connecting it to the large display screen on the wall. With a few taps, the security footage began to play every snide comment, every dismissive glance, every mocking laugh, all laid bare for the entire staff to see. No one could hide. The camera had caught it all. Aaliyah watched their faces as the truth unfolded. Some went pale, others stared at the floor, and a few shifted uncomfortably, as if wishing they could disappear. When the clip ended, she took a slow step forward and spoke in a calm, steady voice. "This," she said, gesturing toward the frozen frame on the screen, "is not just bad customer service. This is humiliation. This is prejudice. And in my store, it is unacceptable." Her words carried a quiet power that made even the most defiant employee avoid her gaze. She explained that her brand was built on dignity, respect, and inclusion, and anyone who could not uphold those values had no place working under her name. Then she surprised them all. Instead of firing everyone on the spot, she announced mandatory sensitivity and leadership training to begin immediately after the meeting. "I am giving each of you one chance," she said firmly. "Not because you deserve it, but because I believe people can change." The weight of her words settled over the room, a mix of shame and hope replacing the earlier arrogance. Aaliyah wasn't just reclaiming her authorities, she was teaching them the standard by which they would now be judged. And for the first time that day, the staff understood that the woman they had underestimated was far more powerful than they had ever imagined. A week later, the store looked and felt completely different. The walls had been refreshed with vibrant displays celebrating diversity, and employees now greeted every customer with genuine warmth. Aaliyah walked in unannounced, her navy blazer perfectly pressed, her steps steady with quiet authority. She watched from a distance as the same staff who once ignored her now rushed to assist a young mother, a group of teenagers, and an elderly couple, all with patience and respect. The atmosphere buzzed with a new energy, one that reflected the values she had fought to instill. As she approached the counter, the store manager, once the loudest voice in her humiliation, looked up nervously. Instead of scolding, Aaliyah offered a small smile. "Better," she said simply. "Much better." Then she turned to leave, but paused at the door. In a voice that carried across the store, she added, "Remember, respect is not a part-time job. It's who we are all the time." The employees nodded, some with tears in their eyes, fully understanding the second chance they had been given. Outside, the sun dipped low, casting a golden glow on the street as Aaliyah's car pulled away. She felt no need for revenge. The transformation of her store and the humbled hearts within it was victory enough. The humiliation she had endured was now just a stepping stone toward something greater, a workplace built on dignity, empathy, and strength. And as she drove off toward her next meeting, she knew this was more than a win for herself. was a reminder that true leadership wasn't about demanding respect. It was about inspiring it. Asterisk, if this story inspired you, like, comment, and share to spread its message. Asterisk, subscribe to Blax Stories for more powerful, real-life stories that will keep you hooked until the very end. Asterisk.